The minute you start getting proud and you're a teacher of God's word, you're in big trouble. And the people who are following you are in big trouble. So it's imperative that your identity is in Christ, that you know he loves you. You don't need to prove anything to anybody or even to yourself. And you approach the word of God to say, God, I just want to know what you say, and I don't care the result.
Eleanor read this for us, but we're going to dare to read it again. Bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were very dry, and he asked me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I said, Sovereign Lord, you alone know.
Dad, thank you so much for doing this podcast episode with us.
Glad to be here.
How you been? Feel like we haven't caught up in a little bit.
Busy, as usual.
Yeah. Have you jumped right back into stuff after vacation?
Yeah. I got a little bit behind there. Went to the Boundary Waters for a week and then vacation for a week, so it's good time off, but yeah.
Have you been writing mostly, or?
Yeah, working on the Christian Essentials. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're able to come back to it with like any fresh perspectives, or is it just back to the grind?
No, it's good to take a break. You got to forget about your work sometimes, and absolutely, it was good to go to Boundary Waters and take vacation. So I was definitely able to get my mind off of stuff. That was good.
Yeah. So we were just asking you about it, but you have listened to some of the podcasts, but not a ton.
Well, they're like 2 hours long.
Yeah, they're very long. Hopefully this one's 2 hours as well.
Okay.
I haven't listened to any of our podcasts.
Yeah. The really hard part is listening to them twice, because I have to listen to them here and then listen to them when I edit them. But,
And if you're with somebody who hasn't...
yeah.
You actually are editing them.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't really, cut out anything. We have 2 camera shots, and so I kind of edit the camera shots together.
I see. Okay.
But anyways, the first question that we like to ask all of our guests is, what is your favorite color, and what does that say about you as a person?
Green is my favorite color. I think it's one of God's favorite colors because he made a lot of the world green.
That's a good point.
What it says about me. Well, I enjoy nature a lot, and so green reminds me of nature and being out in nature. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Which
I guess
Ninja Turtle are you?
What? I guess we'll ask that question too. What Ninja Turtle are you?
I don't know anything about the Ninja Turtles. Which one do you think I
You didn't
know?
learn anything. I mean, Josh and I watched a lot of Ninja Turtles growing up. You didn't.
Yeah, I know.
You never stopped in when we were Saturday morning watching Ninja Turtles?
Not enough to know which one I'm supposedly like. But.
I was going to wear the shirt Michelle got us.
Oh, dang. I forgot about the shirt.
I was going to wear it. I tried it on, and I thought it fit fine, but then Gwen came up to me and goes, "Oh, Mommy, that shirt is too short for you." So I decided maybe after the pregnancy, y'all.
Gwen has opinions about your fashion.
She does. Maybe afterwards. And then we can, tell people, look at the shirt.
Everybody will get to see the shirt.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, Dad, you're probably most like Leonardo, which is the blue one, and he's kind of leader of the group.
Is he the best looking one?
They all look the same.
Oh.
They're just
For turtles.
green turtles. I mean, other than the color, they pretty much all look the same. But
Okay.
Their builds are different, right? Their bodies are different.
it probably just depends on, what
Like if
version.
it's the old one or new one.
Yeah. Anyways, I know when I've talked with you in the past, you feel like you don't have a very great memory. Would you say that's true?
For some reason, although I found out that that's my personality, that my particular personality is so forward focused that I don't give a lot of brain power to the past. Mm-hmm. And because I'm a less emotional person, of course, memories are made by emotion. So I found out this last year that that's actually part of my personality, is not having a great memory of the past.
Mm-hmm.
So that might make this interview a little difficult. I don't know.
Well,
You don't know anything.
We're happy to talk about things in the present or the future.
Okay. I don't know much about the future, but
You like to think about the future a lot, though, it seems like.
that's true, but I don't know anything.
So, we will still ask, though, what is your earliest memory?
California. My dad was in the Navy. We were stationed out there. We lived in a little apartment. And, yeah, I had some friends there. I have no idea how old. Oh, that was about the time I got stung by a jellyfish. So I do remember that. So I was pretty young. I remember the ocean there and swimming there in the ocean, going to the beach. Yeah, so.
About how old were you, do you think?
I would have been before kindergarten. You know, even I can go back a little bit further. The first place I lived in California, now that I think of it. I may have been, 3 or 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe younger. I don't know.
So, how old were you when you got stung by a jellyfish?
I think that was before I started going to school, so, but maybe around kindergarten or first grade. I'm not exactly sure, but I do have a memory of the jellyfish.
And what do you remember from that experience?
I remember the jellyfish being about this big around and gray and black, and I saw it after I was swimming and I felt something wrap around my legs. I thought it was just seaweed or something, and then my legs really started burning, and then it floated to the surface there, and it was painful. They took me home. Mom took me home and called the doctor, and they said put chlorine bleach on it. So that's what they did.
Oh my goodness.
That stopped the sting. So that's an early memory.
Probably because it killed your leg.
I don't know why it worked, but it did.
I guess it's better than peeing on it. That's what I heard you have to do.
Oh,
is
maybe you can do
pee
that
on
too.
it.
I've heard that too, yeah.
Pee on it?
It's probably why I remember it. It's kind of a scary experience.
Yeah, definitely. Well, like you said, I mean, like, our emotions are a big part of how we form memories.
Yeah.
So, it was probably very emotional. Are there other early memories that you have from the time in California?
Yeah, still the beach. My dad used to take us what's called grunion fishing, and there were certain times where these grunion fish would come onto the beach at night, and we'd go out there with a flashlight and pick them up, put them in a bucket, and fry them up later. It was a lot of fun. So I do have memories of.
Is that
grunion
where your
fishing.
love of fishing started?
I don't know. That was more like picking them up off the beach.
Well, that's probably what you'd prefer every time you go fishing, anyways.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
You've always said that you would rather catch than fish, right? Or how do you say it?
I like catching better than fishing.
Yeah. So
I don't really like fishing. I like catching.
I feel like that's probably where it started with the
Could be,
grunions.
yeah. Yeah. We moved. I did kindergarten in California, but then we moved to Iowa in first grade. So don't have a lot of memories there, but.
You wouldn't have had your brothers yet, right? Your mom wouldn't have.
Yeah, I think we had my youngest brother. We're only 11 months apart. So
All three
when
of you guys.
No.
Okay. You and your younger brother.
When my mom went to her 6-week checkup after I was born, they told her you're pregnant again.
Yeah, Josh and I were actually talking about that today.
So my brother and I are
Wild
11 months
bears.
apart. And yeah, he was born in California.
Okay.
But then my other brother, we're about 6 years apart. My third brother, about 6 years apart. So
And just for people that don't know, those are all the siblings you have, right?
yes, I have 2 younger brothers.
So what do you remember of your relationship with your brothers when you were a kid?
We used to fight a lot, especially my the second brother and I. Not sure why. Now when we got older in high school, we got along a lot better. But as kids, at least my mom tells me we fought a lot, and I'm sure it was his fault. Yeah.
Yeah. The one memory that I remember you always telling us about when we were kids with your brother Jeff was when you guys both fell out of a tree, or you fell out of a tree you guys were climbing, and then Jeff like runs inside and like yells to Grandma Joe like Kurt's dead or something like that.
Yeah, we were on the same branch and it broke, and he was able to get up, but the wind, I got the wind completely knocked out of me. I couldn't move, and he thought I was dead. So he got inside the house and told Mom that, but it's amazing we didn't break anything because we fell from a fairly good height.
Wow.
And where would that have been at? Is that
So that's after we moved back to Iowa. We were living on a farm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So overall, what was your childhood like? Like, what would you describe it to be?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
My parents were great, are great, and my childhood was great. Had a lot of fun on that farm.
Did you guys have animals?
We had pigs. Yep, kind of on the side. Dad worked in town with a full-time job, but on the side we had pigs there, and didn't have much to do with them at that point. Later in high school, when I worked for farmers, I had a lot to do with pigs, but just as a kid there, we had a lot of fun.
Did you ever live in Nebraska, or was that just your parents? Did they ever live in Nebraska? Or
Yeah, my parents are from Nebraska.
Okay.
Both of them are. We didn't live in Nebraska, but
Okay.
yeah.
So, as a kid, did you love reading and writing?
Not at all. Maybe a little bit later I liked reading, but no, I wasn't much into. Definitely didn't like to write. And I tell people I flunked high school speech class because I was just screwing around so much and causing trouble. But nope, wasn't a big reader either.
So you said though, like later in high school, or I don't know if you said high school, but you got a little bit more interested in reading. What got you interested in that?
Slightly a little more. I just remember one book I read about the Wild West, and that interested me. But that's the only book I can remember reading. I'm sure I had to read some books for school, but I didn't really actually read all that much throughout high school. Yeah.
When your mom is a teacher, right? No, where did she worked at a school?
She worked at the school as the secretary of the superintendent,
Okay.
and before that, the principal. So,
Okay.
so if I got in trouble, she knew it.
So, if you weren't reading or writing, which is what you spend most of your time doing now, what did you like to do as a kid?
Younger kid or older kid?
Both.
Yeah, well, I was a younger kid living out on the farm. Had a BB gun, and I would shoot a lot of birds. I loved hunting birds with my BB gun, and I'd go down to this creek area and just sit there and watch birds come up to me and shoot them. So had a lot of fun hunting. We had a motorcycle on the farm as well, so did a lot of fun stuff with that. And so, yeah, we had a lot of fun on the farm.
I don't know if I ever heard about the motorcycle. Was it like a dirt bike type
Yeah, it was like a dirt
motorcycle?
bike, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my brother and I rode it to death, so.
Wow. And have you ever owned a motorcycle after that?
Nope. Mom really doesn't want me to, so.
I feel like you could get one, I don't know.
You could ride Pete's. Does Peter Moore have one?
Yeah, Peter Moore has one.
You
Yeah.
could ride his when Brenda's not looking.
It's actually probably in the parking lot. You could just ask Peter for the keys.
I could, yeah.
So what was when you were a kid, what was your relationship with God like?
Non-existent. We went to Catholic church every day, or not every day, every week. And I went through catechism, a few years of that, but didn't get anything out of it. The only thing I remember is this nun telling me, you cannot pray like this. Don't ever pray like this, because if your fingers are pointing down to hell and your prayers are not going to heaven, you got to pray like this. Again, probably something I remember because it kind of shocked me. Like, oh my goodness, I've been praying to hell.
It's channeled through the fingertips.
Didn't learn a whole lot. So I think I went to confession once or twice as a high school kid. But
What was that experience like? What is the process? I've been very interested in.
I must have been feeling guilty about something. I don't remember really. But yeah, you just go in that little room and talk to the guy, and I remember feeling better afterwards. Like, okay, well now I'm okay now.
Yeah.
But
did he tell you like how many like
Hail Marys to do,
say
and Our Father, sure, yeah.
And did you find comfort in that fact that like whatever you did wrong would go away after you did that?
I do remember feeling some relief that okay, I remember feeling some relief.
Mm-hmm.
So did you have any concept of who God was?
No, didn't think about him. I don't know.
Was it a big part of your home life at all, or was it like Sunday we went to church and that's
Yeah,
what we did?
it wasn't a big part of home life. Mom and dad at that point weren't believers either, and so we went to church, but because they grew up Catholic. But I was way too busy partying and having fun in high school, especially. Had a lot of friends and had a lot of fun. So I didn't really care much about religion, that's for sure.
So what those friends that you had, how would they have seen you? Like what type of person would they have said you were?
Good question. I had a lot of friends. I had kind of a weird thing as I think about it. I had a lot of friends that were girls in my class, and we were never boyfriend girlfriends, but I can't think of another guy in my class that had more relationships with girls than me. But then I also hung out with with a lot of guys, and so I was, I don't know, fortunate enough to be part of the popular crowd. And even though I didn't play sports, I had really good friends in high school, both guys and gals. And
So what were you
I'm not
doing
exactly
to-
sure why, because I'm not a big partier now, that's for sure. And I think I've gone more to be an introvert than an extrovert. It's interesting. Even back then, though, people would come to me with their problems and talk to me. So I think that's one reason I had some relationship with those girls, is they would come and talk to me about their problems. For some reason, I have no idea. I'm sure I didn't have a lot of wisdom, but yeah, it's just kind of weird that
You just
was.
look like you care.
I really don't know, because I don't remember being an especially caring person, but I certainly wasn't a believer.
I think you're a very charismatic person. Not in like the theological sense, but in like you have charisma. Like you can portray yourself well, and I don't know if I would say like convince people of things. Like you're a very good orator, obviously, but also like just interpersonally, I think you focus on the other person in a conversation.
Was he doing that in high school, though, is the question.
I think he must have been.
Do you
Because
think?
I think, like, my guess is, like, girls don't really like guys who don't talk. And so I feel like you were probably willing to talk to them and willing to ask them things about themselves and not make it, like, weird and awkward.
Yeah, maybe even then.
Like confidence. And you look like that one actor. I think that probably had a lot to do with it. You're very
Which
handsome.
one is that?
Younger, why forget? You
Who
look
do
like one of
you always
those.
say you look like?
Eddie Munster on the Munsters.
Who's that?
I don't know.
That's before your time.
Yeah, I don't know who
No,
that
it's
is.
like, who's the Mission Impossible guy?
Yeah.
guy.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, Tom
Yeah,
Cruise.
you look when you were younger. You look like various famous guys.
Okay.
So it could
well,
be that.
I was never told that in high school, but yeah, I don't know what it was, but I had a great high school experience. Fantastic.
So how big was your school?
Very small. The whole school was 500 people,
Okay.
from kindergarten through senior. Yeah.
Everybody.
My class was 45 people.
So you probably did know them all and were friends with them all.
Well, it's still weird. We still had cliques. I don't know why. And it was small enough that you hung out with, people in the lower class or the upper class too. But
Okay.
and I went to school with some of those people all the way from first grade to graduating.
Wow.
Wow.
So We were very close.
Are there any of those people that you still have any kind of relationship or contact with these days?
No. When I became a Christian, when I came back from the military and had become a Christian and started sharing the gospel with them, those relationships ended. Yeah.
I'd like to hear a story about when you guys were in a pickup, something about mailboxes. Tell that story.
My family was sitting in the living room one evening, and it was still light out, and we had a big picture glass window in the living room that faced out to the blacktop road in front of our house. And we're sitting there watching TV, and all of a sudden we hear this pickup truck pull up to the mailbox and smash the mailbox, run over the mailbox, and then back up and take off. And my brother and I, we didn't even say anything to each other. We both just immediately jumped up, ran out of the house, jumped into his pickup truck, and started chasing this guy without even a word to each other. And we're chasing him down this blacktop road, and I'm in the passenger seat, and I crawl to the back bed of the truck.
While he's driving.
We're flying down this blacktop road.
Not only does he look like an action movie.
Yeah.
We lived out in the country, so, there wasn't any cars out there, but, and I remember there being beer bottles in the back bed of the truck, and I was just throwing these beer bottles at this guy.
Oh my goodness.
Did you recognize the guy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we recognized him. We knew who he was. And Bruce Wenzel. And my mom was a secretary at the school, superintendent, and somehow he just did not like her. And I don't remember why, but he was a very troubled kid. He had a reputation for all kinds of stuff. And anyway, we chased him down, and finally we let him go, but we at least knew who it was, and we reported him, and I don't remember what happened, but I remember he fixed the mailbox.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is kind of crazy. Both my brother, we flew outside of this pickup truck, and we were down the road chasing this guy.
Throwing beer bottles.
I feel like that's kind of like, I don't know, a human instinct. Like,
Protect your family.
if our house has been attacked or disrespected or whatever, like.
We were mad.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what was driving us. I'm sure we were mad.
I wonder what your dad was feeling. Like his two teenage boys just up and left.
I don't know. We were out of the house before we even talked to anybody.
So, maybe one last question about your childhood, but what could you speak to your relationship with your parents? You said like they were great parents. What made them great parents?
We just had a very peaceful family. They were very supportive of all of us. In hindsight, I think both I and they would say they gave me too much freedom. I mean, I had a fake ID long before I was old enough to drink, but I was out partying with older people and drinking a lot. And I think they knew some of that, but had a lot of freedom. And probably too much. But all my friends really liked my mom and dad because of that freedom. If they stayed over with me, they got all those same freedoms. Mm-hmm. And so my parents were popular with my friends. And mom was very popular at school. She knew all the kids, and everybody loved her except Bruce Wenzel. But yeah, so no, they were great parents. They certainly raised us to know right from wrong, and some of my fondest memories, this is where I learned to fish, is my dad taking me to farm ponds, my brother and I, to farm ponds and bass fishing on these farm ponds, and that's where I gained my joy or my likeness for fishing. Mm-hmm. So,
well, you and Jeff does a lot of fishing and hunting.
He still does a lot of fishing and hunting, yeah.
When I heard your mom was giving kids cereal, sugary cereal, even back then, when your friends would come over, she would pull out the sugary cereal and give it to them that their parents weren't giving them.
Some of my best friends were the Schindel twins, Bruce and Brian, and their parents would not let them have any sugary cereal. So when they stayed overnight with me, they're just eating the Captain Crunch.
And she still does that. She's giving great grandkids and grandkids sugary cereal.
That was like a big deal when I was a kid. Is we would go over to, we'd drive like 4 hours to Sioux City, and we'd stay overnight. And it's like the big deal is you're gonna wake up in the morning and you're gonna have Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
Like that was a big deal.
She's doing it. Teddy Grahams and marshmallows for her great grandkids. Gwen does look forward to that. And SpongeBob.
That's probably
they're fun people.
First place I watched SpongeBob was at their house.
Well, I was just wondering, why do they think that's the show that kids are into now? I have no idea.
Were you guys in the same house that I would remember going to when I was a kid?
Yeah.
And that's the house you grew up, like, you guys moved from California to that house? Or?
No, we moved to that farm first.
Oh, right.
But when I was in high school, we moved to that house that you know of on that Blacktop Road there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was the one they moved from to come here? Or did you guys move?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned, like, you were big into drinking and partying. Did you ever, like, looking back at it, did you ever feel like you had, like, an addiction problem with alcohol? Or was it just, like, the social drinking?
The latter. I wasn't addicted to it. Yeah, it was just to party.
Mm-hmm.
And I never did much hard alcohol. When I did it a couple of times, and that wasn't a good thing. But I drank a lot of beer.
Mm-hmm.
So what was college like for you?
Well, I was older because I'd gone into the military.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a Christian at that point. So
So you went to the military before college?
yeah.
Then we're going to back up. What was that
Okay.
like, getting in and basic training and all that?
Well, to this day, I have no idea why I went to the military. I don't remember the decision process. Again, I had all these friends, and they were all going off to college. Why didn't I go with them? I have no idea. I don't remember making that decision.
Was there, like, a recruiter at the school?
Dad
or?
brought a recruiter out to the house because he just wanted me to talk to him, and he was kind of a dorky guy, and that's what I remember. But why I made that decision, I don't remember why I would have done that. Looking back a little bit, I think that I have a little bit of an adventurous spirit to me,
Mm-hmm.
and that's maybe the reason. Maybe the guy talked and said, "Hey, it's going to be a great adventure." I said, "Okay, sign me up." But I left. I was leaving everybody because I was stationed in West Germany, and so. It was pretty wild, but it was a great experience for me. I grew up a lot, did a lot of hard things, learned a lot about myself. But about a year into that is when I came to Christ, and that was in Germany. And my life changed radically.
And who shared the gospel with you?
Brad, he was a guy in the barracks there. I just remember that I don't know, I just felt I'd tried everything. I'd tried drinking, I felt like I'd tried everything, and I wasn't happy. And I thought, well, maybe I'll start reading the Bible. And so I got a Bible, went to the PX, which is the military store on base, and bought a Bible and started reading in Genesis and got all the way to, I don't know, Leviticus or something. And it's like, okay, there's nothing in here for me. But then I remembered, hey, there's a New Testament. And so for some reason I started reading the Gospel of John. And I remember reading John chapter 3, and Jesus said, you got to be born again to go to heaven. And I thought, what? Jesus said that? Because I'd heard this phrase born again, and that was like crazy people, You don't want to be a born again person. They're wacko. But Jesus actually said you got to be born again, and that got my attention. And so I started reading more, and just the next thing I remember is that Brad and Russ were two Christians in my barracks, in my company there. And every Sunday morning, they'd go down the hallways of the barracks, knocking on doors, inviting guys to church. And we all hated them because we were out drinking the night before. We're all hungover, and they're knocking on our door. I thought, well, I want to go to church with those guys. So I got up on a Sunday morning, took a shower, and I just kind of acted like I was, around, and I was just up doing nothing. And they came by, sure enough, invited me to church, and I said, okay, I'll go. And so I started going to church with them. I don't think I was a Christian yet. In fact, I'm sure I wasn't. But then one day, Brad, I was in his barracks room, and my friend was bunking with Brad in his room. His name was Kentucky. We called him Kentucky. I can't even remember his real name now. And Kentucky was a foul-mouthed drinking guy, and again, one of my buddies. And Brad is sitting there in his room. He's sharing the gospel with me. And he just said, would you like to receive Christ? And I said, yeah, I would. And Kentucky he said, Jurgie, you're not doing this. No, don't do this. He's right. He's sitting right there. And I said, Kentucky, I want to do this. So I knelt down at the bunk, on the bunk there, on the floor by the bunk, and I prayed. And the next thing I remember is walking back to my barracks room, and I walked into the room, and this warm feeling started at the top of my head and went all the way through my body, and it literally felt like scales fell off my eyes. The room just felt brighter. And I remember after that happened, I looked over at my music collection. I was big into music at that time. I had a nice stereo and all this music, and the thought went through my head, that stuff's got to go. It wasn't like bad music, but it just got to go. So I boxed it all up, and I took it to the guy next door named Randy, who was always coming over borrowing my music, which I hated. And I said, Randy, this is all yours. He said, what? I said, yeah, I don't want it anymore. And my life just radically changed after that. When I was in basic training, I had drill sergeants tell me, Kurt, you got to, they called me Alphabet in basic training because of my long name. But I was so foul-mouthed that I remember a drill sergeant telling me, tone it down, Alphabet. And
so were you like foul-mouthed towards your drill instructors, or just towards whatever?
Not towards them, just always
in
cussing.
general.
And in the military, always cussing and drinking and all that. But all that changed. I mean, I remember before that happened, I went home for Christmas. I was on leave for Christmas. So I went from Germany back home for Christmas. And I just remember thinking, okay, Kurt, you can't cuss. Don't cuss while you're at home. Well, I just kept cussing, and I couldn't stop it. But when I got saved, that immediately stopped. For whatever reason, it was just gone. And my desire to drink was gone immediately. My best friend, Joe White, we used to always run together and go to the gym together. And sometime later after that, we're running, and he says, Jurgie, what's going on with you? You're a totally different person. What's happening? And I remember telling him, I'm not exactly sure, but God's just changing my life. And I didn't really have a great explanation for what was going on in my life, but it changed radically.
So this is going to take the conversation in a completely different direction, but I just have the question. So like, as you were describing your experience of accepting Christ, do you feel like, and this isn't like a trick question or I'm trying to like trap you in any way, but do you feel like your faith or your regeneration came first?
Regeneration. I not only believe that theologically, but I believe that experientially. And I think if anybody will think about it, God was drawing me to him. And there's no way that I would have knelt beside that bunk in front of Kentucky in my own power.
While he's saying, don't do it.
Yeah, he's saying, don't do this. And there's no way I would have done that.
Well,
I was already saved when I knelt at that bunk. I mean, I professed my faith there, but I think I was already saved.
Well, do you know why Kentucky was yelling, don't do it? Is it because you would become boring and Christian, or?
I don't remember. Maybe he thought, okay, I'm going to lose him as a friend. I don't know, which he did, by the way. I don't remember him being especially anti-Christian, but
Well, those two other guys that everybody hated were waking people up, so he probably thought you were gonna.
Yeah, I'm sure he thought, okay, he's gonna become like those guys, and those guys are weird, and so yeah.
So, how would you like that experience of walking back into your room and feeling like the warmth in your body? And I know you described it before as like you felt like scales came off your eyes, like everything was bright.
Yeah.
Like, would you call that? What would you call that experience?
Well, I think it was from the Holy Spirit, but I think I was saved before that experience happened. But yeah, I don't believe in some sort of second baptism or something. But yeah, I've never experienced anything like that since. But definitely felt it that day. And my recollection is it was rather soon after. I mean, like right after I was in Brad's room, I went back to my room, and that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't trying to pull us onto an entire tangent about Calvinism. And which point of tulip is that a point of tulip, or
Irresistible Grace.
yeah, I guess that would be
That
one.
might be the closest one. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
Did you struggle at all in basic training with all the like hard stuff you have to do?
No, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the challenge, and I mean, a lot of guys didn't make it, but I enjoyed the challenge. And I enjoyed that. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was interesting experience because you've seen this on movies where you're getting off the bus, you arrive at this base. And you get right off the bus, these drill sergeants are just screaming at you, get out and do those push-ups, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, it was like that, Of course, from Iowa, I'd never experienced anything like that before. But the last day when we were done with basic training, all these drill sergeants, they had smiles on their faces. They're clapping us on the back, congratulating us, talking like they were a friend. It's like, who are you? You've been screaming at me for 10 weeks. Who are you? But no, I enjoyed basic training. It was a good experience.
So you said that like about your whole experience in the Army that you learned a lot about yourself. What were some of those lessons you learned?
Well, I just hadn't experienced much of anything, being in a small school, a small town, Iowa, hadn't experienced much of anything. And yeah, I guess I learned, okay, well, I can run with a heavy pack for, X number of miles, you're definitely tested. And so I think it gave me confidence, in who I was and what I could do. So I think that's part of the training. And just meeting new people. I'll say this, growing up in Iowa, I'd never met a black person. There wasn't a black person in Hinton, Iowa, especially in our school. So when I joined the Army, there's all kinds of black guys. And I got along with them great. Some of my best friends were black guys. I loved learning about the black culture. And I really enjoyed these guys. But when I did get to Germany, a new black guy came. His name was Martin. Martin was from Oakland, California. And a judge had said, you're either going to jail or you're going to the Army. So he went to the Army. He was a rough guy. And he hated me. They put us in the same bunk room together, and I'm trying to be nice to the guy because I have no problems with black people. And he just, he's a Malcolm X type guy and very militant about all that. And just because I was white, it's like, and that really shocked me. I'd never experienced that before, again, because I was getting along with all the other black guys just fine. Some of them were really good friends. And that shocked me. And finally, they moved him out of my room because he started threatening me with different things. So it was kind of sad. But that was one of the things I learned. Is there was a lot of black people and Latinos in the military, and I really enjoyed my friendships with them and learning about their cultures. So that was one neat thing about the Army. And in the Army, people don't care about your color. I mean, unless you're like Martin, but there's racism, at least when I was in the military, it's just not there. You have black sergeants that are in charge of you. A lot of them had served in the Vietnam War, and I had a lot of respect for them. A lot of my drill sergeants were black guys, and they'd served in the Vietnam War. So I came out of the military experience with a lot of very high deal of respect for Latinos and black people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because, one of the big focuses of the Army is creating, like, brothers in arms.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think through that shared experience of you're all doing the same thing. It's like
the same difficult thing.
Yeah, the same difficult thing especially. It's like, well, I can not rely on this person that I need to rely on to help me with doing this difficult thing. And then it'll really suck. Or I can not care about all that stuff and we can just do our job.
Yeah.
So I think that makes a lot of sense.
So how did you handle the conflict of Martin hating you for no reason? And you're trying to, because you were saved at this point, right?
Good question. Was I saved? I think I might have been saved at that point. Yeah.
And him threatening you, how did you handle it? Did it just get too much and you like told someone or?
I just remember trying to be friendly. Said, I got nothing against you, buddy. And I think it was somebody else. I remember I really wanted to try to work it out. Mm-hmm. I didn't want him to leave. Mm-hmm. And but I think it was, if I remember correctly, somebody else reported, his animosity toward me to somebody, and then he was gone. Mm-hmm. They bunked him with another black guy. So the biggest thing I remember was that just being shocked. Like I don't think I'd ever been hated before. That's the first time that I met somebody that actually doesn't like me. It hasn't been for no good reason,
Mm-hmm.
And so that was part of it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I feel like that does kind of go back to your natural charisma, though, that you hadn't ever really had anybody hate you.
Well, of course, I have no idea what Martin had experienced, and I'm sure, if I knew what he'd experienced, I'd understand it more. But he wasn't going to share that with me. But yeah.
Well, if he didn't even want to be there, it was like he had no
Well, that's
choice to
true.
be there. Then
Yeah.
he was gonna be happy about
So
the people he was around.
He had a chip on his shoulder right from the beginning.
Yeah.
So, after getting saved, you said that was about like 1 year into your time in the Army. How much longer were you in the Army?
1 year of full-time service. So they had a special program then where you could do 2 years full-time service and 4 years called inactive reserve. So yeah, I was only in Germany for 2 years. That was a great program. So I had about another year in the military and in Germany being a Christian.
And what did you do during that time?
I got really close to Brad and Russ. They became my best friends. They were great guys. I've stayed in touch with them a little bit, and I have visited Brad since then in Michigan. They were great guys, and I just started sharing the gospel with people, and being committed to a church that was on the base there. Again, my life radically changed, and I remember sharing the gospel with a lot of guys. So I came just like Brad and Russ.
Yeah.
So now we were a threesome. And so, yeah, getting to know other Christians on the base.
Mm-hmm. So, personally, did you feel like you had a strong draw towards theology at that point?
No, just evangelism. I just feel like God gave me the gift of evangelism. For the first, 3 years of my Christian life, I didn't think about studying the Bible. I love the Bible, but in terms of studying it, I was just all about, I was constantly thinking about, and not in a guilty way, not in a pressured way, just it was an adventure to share the gospel with people. And I was definitely had the gift of evangelism early in my Christian life.
So what kind of advice would you or encouragement would you give to people who feel like they do have the gift of evangelism, or they're not sure about evangelism, what kind of encouragement would you give?
Well, there's definitely a gift of evangelism. I know what it feels like to have it, and I know what it feels like not to have it. I don't have the gift of evangelism anymore. That doesn't mean I don't evangelize or I don't want to share the gospel with people. But when you have the gift of evangelism, it's just constantly a passion that you're having, and you'd rather spend time with unbelievers than believers sometimes, a lot of times. And you're not intimidated, that's where you want to be, and you want to be sharing the gospel with unbelievers. It's a supernatural thing. And so people with the gift of evangelism make the mistake of expecting other people to be like them. Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunate, because then they put a big guilt trip on others. But the only way you can be like that is by the grace of God. And I know what that feels like. And I know what it felt like when God changed my gifts.
I never considered that can happen. I thought you got one and then that's who you are. Like, it's part of you.
I can testify in my life, I'm not sure it happens to every Christian, but in my life, my gifts radically changed in college. And the first 2 years of college, I'm just sharing the gospel with all kinds of people. Professors, I didn't care. And I think what happened is the group there grew, the Christian group on campus there grew, and all of a sudden I had this burden for caring for them, which I didn't have before. Mm-hmm. It was just all about, no, we just got to keep adding to the number, because God will take care of these Christians. I need to get out there and share the gospel with unbelievers. Mm-hmm. Well, God started to radically change my mind about that. No, we gotta shepherd these people now. We gotta teach these people now. And I just remember that about 2 years in, my desires, and that's how do you know what your spiritual gift is? You guys have heard me teach that. If you could do anything, what would you want to do for God? Mm-hmm. That's what your spiritual gift is. It's a desire. And God radically changed my desires. It's not that I stopped sharing the gospel with people, but I now had this passion to just care for the believers there more and teach them. And my gifting changed.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Because I haven't, I don't know. I'm not sure if I've ever even figured out what my spiritual gift is. I mean, I feel like right now, with my current work, I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know if it's the gift of mercy or what, but I
think so, sure.
Just one of my favorite things that happens is someone does something and a lot of the guys that I work with have been in prison or have been out on the streets, and they know how people act. If you disrespect someone, a fight's gonna start.
Yeah.
And it's for me, for them to do something and then I'm just not only not affected by it, but actually trying to figure out oh, well, what are you going through that is that caused that thing to happen, or what were you struggling with or whatever. I think it just kind of blows some people away.
You're not going to get in a fight with them.
Yeah, and even there was one situation at work where I've gained a little bit of a reputation for being a bad driver because I'm not the most focused when I'm driving. And we had just finished with our lunch break, and my truck was parked on the side of the street, and some guys were sitting in the truck bed and some guys were in the cab, and I put the truck into reverse and I back up, and there was a guy who had parked behind me, and I just had not even realized that he was there. I think it was a no parking zone, but he might have been inside the parking zone. Anyways, I backed into him, and then I started to pull forward because I didn't want to be touching his vehicle. But I think the guy in the vehicle thought that I was trying to get away from him, and so this big black guy, I don't know, probably over 6 foot, came storming out of his vehicle, and he was cursing at me, and I was just talking to him calmly, while like all my coworkers were getting ready to fight this guy so they could beat me up.
Don't worry, Joe.
And then like I finally like got out and we looked at his car and like there's no damage on it, and he was like the guy just like he either went from like 100 to 0 because he saw that I had 3 other guys around me, or he went from 100 to 0 because there was nothing wrong with his car. But like my coworkers were like, yeah, we were about to fight that guy.
Yeah, you work with some rough guys, so they would have taken care of you.
They're all really good guys.
That's the gift of mercy. I don't have it. Somebody yelling at you. Road rage is a real thing. For the gift of evangelism, I can definitely relate to the, like, it's on your mind whenever you meet a new person. It's like my number one thing I want to do or get in there somehow is I'm going to tell them about Jesus.
Yeah, I think you have the gift of evangelism.
And talking to strangers, I have no problem. But then your point about that they can put, like, people with that gift can put pressure on somebody that doesn't. Yeah. When Josh and I, so with Pauline, when we lived together, because I had that gift and Pauline just was kind of like a fun, like, you know, I'm along for the ride. She would come with me door knocking and sharing the gospel with people. And it was not a problem because she's so outgoing. But then Josh and I got married and I was going to make him do that too. So we get up and I'm dressed and I'm so pumped and excited to go knock on the doors of our apartment and invite people to church and share the gospel with them. And we were about to go to the first door and Josh nearly passes out because it's like so much. He just is like, oh my goodness, I can't do this. We knock on one door, they didn't answer. He had to go back to our apartment and sit down. He's like red. And I said, Josh, I don't think you can do this. You're going to pass out. But that was the first time I realized not everybody can do the same things. He does not have that gift.
It's a gift.
So, I mean, coming back to, like, you were really focused on evangelism, how would you go about doing that? Like, I know, like, obviously you have the desire to do it, but was there a specific strategy?
No, I don't think so.
Did you just walk up to random people and just start telling them about Jesus?
No, I would engage them in a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be pretty bold and engage them in a conversation. I remember one of my professors, I saw her sitting on a bench on the campus, and I sat down next to her and shared the gospel with her. And I remember standing up in a class once.
You were one of those people?
I shared the gospel with the entire class.
Oh my goodness.
I don't remember what prompted me to do that, but...
What was the story with the Moonies?
I've told you too many stories. So our Association of Churches had a leadership training program in Washington, D.C. every summer. I went 4 different summers. And one summer we were there, and we were on the Washington Mall there. And the Moonies, this religion, this cult, had set up a big compound there on the mall, on the Washington Mall. They had tents there and stuff and displays.
Isn't that like the Hare Krishna cult?
Something like that. And we were on the mall doing evangelism, meeting people and doing evangelism there. And we were sitting on the grass. I remember we were sitting on the grass eating lunch, and this Mooney or Hare Krishna walked by, and his little son was following him. His little son had this shaved head with a ponytail. And I just thought about that verse where Jesus said, if anyone causes one of these little ones to stumble, it'd be better for him to have a millstone tied around his neck and thrown into the sea. And it just made me mad to see that. And so I turned to the dozen people there and I said, I'm going to go preach the gospel to those people. And I remember there was a porta potty a little ways away. I went to the porta potty to pray first. God, help me do this. And so I went over to the Mooney compound. They had like a circle of displays and tents and stuff, and I walked around a little bit. But there was, for some reason, there was some sort of little stage in the middle of this thing. And so I got up on that stage.
Oh my goodness.
And I just started preaching the gospel. And amazingly, a crowd gathered there listening to what I was saying. And, you know, these Hare Krishnas, these Moonies preach, peace and nonviolence, all of that. Well, these 2 huge Hare Krishna guys got up on the stage, and they're trying to stand between me and the crowd to block me. And they were huge guys, and they were really angry. And so I just tried to keep sidestepping, and keep preaching the gospel. For some reason, it's a little bit like Elijah, where Elijah just has all this boldness and then he loses it. Well, somebody said, the cops are coming. And all of a sudden my courage was gone. I jumped off the stage and left. But I don't know. Looking back on that was crazy. But someone with the gift of evangelism, that's kind of what they do. Mm-hmm. They can do so.
I just let the Mormons keep me on their door knocking list. And whenever a new one comes, I let them come to my house, share Mormonism with me. I share the gospel with them. I let the non-believers come to me nowadays. Josh and I had gone to the LGBT march thing that they do. What is it called? Like
remember that.
Pride. And seeing the kids with their parents and their various sexual orientation, it was so sad. But one thing so he did get better at talking to strangers because he was there. For us, it was that we don't want to talk to kids, when their parents don't, believe that. And so we always try to talk to their parents. Because, I don't know, I guess I wouldn't want somebody coming up to my kid and, sharing strange religion with them. But it was very sad that a lot of these parents are protecting their kids from Jesus. Like our neighbors, they do that, They want to protect their kids from Jesus. And it's like, you're doing the opposite of what you think you're doing. And it's really sad.
Right.
So to get back to that experience of you feeling like God changed your gifting, what was that experience like?
Well, I just remember all of a sudden had a voracious appetite to study the Bible. I'd not had that before. And I started skipping classes just to study the Bible, staying up late at night studying the Bible. That's about the time where I said I made the goal. Okay, I can get A's in my classes, but I don't want to take the time to do the A's. My goal is to get straight B's. I want a 3.0. I want to graduate from college with 3.0. And I graduated with a 3.1 GPA in
nice.
college.
Overachiever.
But I was just so busy doing other stuff. That was my goal, Academics wasn't my goal. And I remember, you probably heard the story, I think this was my sophomore or junior year in college, I went to Pete. Pete lived about a couple blocks away from where I was living in the dorm, and I said, Pete, I was up all last night praying, and this is what God wants me to do. He wants me to quit school and just be full-time ministry. And he and this other guy were sitting there listening to me, and they kind of looked at each other, and they looked back at me and said, Kurt, that's a terrible idea. I felt pretty deflated. So that was the beginning of Pete discipling me. I know he'd been discipling me before that, but that's a conversation that he mentions a lot jokingly, how all the different mistakes he's kept me from making. That was the first one. But no, I just had a voracious appetite to study the Word. And I felt that change. I don't, that may be unique to me, but maybe that's my personality. I just went straight from full bore evangelism and then full bore studying the Word. And maybe that's kind of my personality a little bit.
Well, so obviously, those desires were coming from the Holy Spirit. Do you feel like, because I think lots of Christians probably experience similar desires, but maybe it doesn't come to fruition because they aren't willing to act on it. Do you think there's, I'm not asking you to toot your own horn, but do you think there's a way in which you were humble and just wanting to do whatever God wanted you to do?
Was I humble back then? I don't know. Ask Pete. I think, as all Christians, we love people. And I think that if I have any explanation for why my gifts changed, it's because the need changed.
That's what I was, thinking.
We had seen a lot of people saved, and now the need was shepherding and teaching. Mm-hmm. And of course, there was other older guys there, that were mentoring me. I wasn't like a pastor or anything then, but the need changed, and so I think God changed my gifting because the need changed, and that's the direction He wanted me to go. Initially, our group was small, and evangelism was needed, but God, it says in 1 Corinthians 12 that the Holy Spirit chooses what gifts we have. He distributes them according to His will. So He certainly has the ability to give it here and then take it away and give it. He has the ability to do all that. So, yeah.
So as you started voraciously studying the Bible, where did you start?
Well, I just started reading it more. I did not start with a lot of reference works or commentaries or anything like that. I just started memorizing large parts of Scripture, studying, kind of reading a lot of it and reading it over and over again and memorizing it. That's kind of where I began.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of advice would you give to people who are maybe just starting out studying the Bible?
Do what I did. Really. Don't go to the commentaries and the reference works and all of that. Just read it for yourself and pray and ask God to help you understand it. I would definitely highly recommend that.
Mm-hmm. And why would you recommend that?
Gee, I don't want to sound proud here.
We've accomplished a lot with just that.
Of course, you've seen my office. I have bookshelves of commentaries and reference works, and I calculated once that I've probably read over 2,000 books. And so, obviously, I'm not opposed to...
2,000 books specifically about the Bible,
yeah.
Or just...
Yep. So, obviously, I'm not opposed to that kind of thing. But, quite frankly, it's through all that reading and all those commentaries that I have a conviction that, just looking at the word fresh and just humbly studying it you're going to learn more that way. Again, I want to be careful. I've certainly read books that help me understand Scripture better, no doubt about it. But I think that most of my theological mentors, I don't want to say that. I just see a shallowness, especially today, in American Christian nonfiction writing. I think as American Christianity has gotten more shallow, I think that American Christian authors have gotten more shallow. So again, I don't want to make that sound arrogant. I certainly have learned a lot from other people. Don't misunderstand me. But the most life-changing things, I will say this, the most life-changing things I've ever met, I didn't read in a book. I read in the Bible, where God spoke to me through Scripture, and I learned something that I never read in a book. And there are things that I preach today. Mm-hmm. Didn't learn in a commentary either. And so I don't know why that is. Again, I don't want to unnecessarily put down reference works and learning from other people, but I will say that I've learned the most important things I've ever learned and the most life-changing things I've ever learned, I've learned from my own personal Bible study.
Do you think you're getting those third hand? They're reading the Bible and then it's being influenced by their life and their outlook on things, and then they're passing it to you, and then you're reading that. So you're kind of far removed from the original Word of God. But also, I think one thing you say is when people read the Bible, especially when they're studying like Revelations or something, and you have fears, or if you have worries, that's going to influence how you interpret it and how you understand it. So there's going to be some of that too when you're reading commentary from someone else, if they have some sort of bias while they're commentating on the Bible. Whereas if you're reading it, the only one that you have to worry about is yourself and not somebody else.
Yeah, one of my mentors, John Hopler, said many years ago, I don't know if he said this to me personally or was think he was giving a teaching. He said the number one rule for interpreting Scripture accurately is humility. And over the years, I've just learned that almost every false doctrine that you can name with an ism is human-centered somehow. Arminianism, to me, is a very human-centered doctrine that exalts human free will, all those things. And charismaticism, in my opinion, is a very inward focused perspective on life. It's all about me. The health and wealth gospel thing, just I don't have to admit, pre-tribulationism, what would you rather have, Pre-tribulationism, where it says we're taken off this earth immediately before any bad stuff happens. Well, again, that's very human-centered perspective. And I've just found that almost every false doctrine ism is somehow at its core human-centered instead of God-centered. And so it's only if you come to Scripture with humility that you have, hey, this is about God. I want the truth no matter what. Because you're not going to get the truth about the end times, for example, if you don't have that attitude. I don't think you're going to get the truth about predestination without that. And because a lot of truth is offensive to our flesh.
Yeah.
And so if you approach the Bible from a self-centered perspective, a human-centered perspective, you are going to get it wrong. So I think that's one of the, again, I don't want to toot my horn, but I feel like that is one perspective I have, that I come to the Scriptures, what was it saying? Is it Habakkuk or Malachi? This is who God esteems, who trembles at my word. This is the one who God esteems, the one who trembles at my word. And I think for whatever reason, God's given me that, this book is holy. And it's a huge sin to misinterpret it. And that's my gift of teaching coming out. Because if you misinterpret it and you teach that misinterpretation, other people, it's going to hurt them. All these false doctrines, they all hurt Christians more than those Christians realize. And the devil uses that. And so I'm very truth-oriented, as people who know me know that. And it's because of love. Because if you're deceived, it's going to hurt you. And so that's where some of my passion comes from. But it's got to be done with humility. Paul warned, knowledge puffs up. And I'm just grateful that to my knowledge, I've never felt that way, that I'm superior to other people because of whatever Bible knowledge I may have. I just think, man, if you don't stay humble, you're going to start getting it wrong. The minute you start getting proud and you're a teacher of God's word, you're in big trouble. And the people who are following you are in big trouble. So it's imperative that your identity is in Christ, that you know He loves you. You don't need to prove anything to anybody or even to yourself. And you approach the Word of God to say, God, I just want to know what you say, and I don't care the result. Because the result in my life, I've lost friends. I've lost people at New Life. People have walked away from New Life because of something that I taught that I believed was true. And I knew that would happen sometimes. And so that attitude has cost me in many ways. And that's one reason people don't do it. They would rather please people than God. And there is definitely a cost to it. That's been the very hardest thing about being a pastor for the last 31 years, is losing people. Because they come to your church, you love them, you serve them, you befriend them, and wow, all of a sudden you recognize, wow, I love them a lot more than they love me, and they left over that. And but sometimes it's been over doctrine, and so there's a cost to it for sure. But
does that hurt to see one of your sheep wander off and there's nothing you can do to go after them?
As I said, it's by far the most painful thing I've experienced in ministry, by far. Yeah. Because I often see them when they leave, their life goes downhill. And it doesn't turn out well. I've seen that many times.
So, you said like, if someone wants to understand the Bible, they should just read it, which I definitely agree with. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Do you think everybody is equipped to do that?
No. I think it's a gift again. Again, this is all God's grace. This is all credit goes to God. Like my gift of evangelism. I couldn't take credit for how I used to do evangelism. And I can't take credit now for how I study the Bible and how well. I remember one of my mentors, Rick Whitney, telling me, Kurt, you're a very clear thinker. And again, I think that's part of my personality. That's maybe one advantage of being less emotional in terms of my personality is being a clear thinker. And so I think that's one of the things that helps me understand Scripture better, is being a clear thinker. But I definitely recognize I have a gift to pull those things together, and other people that have my gift can resonate with what I'm saying. They know what I'm talking about. Where you're just pulling those things together, and you're reconciling those scriptures together and coming up with a truth that you can teach and it can bless other people. So
would you say early on in that time of studying the Bible that you came to a conviction of like election and predestination and like post-trib rapture and like a lot of things that you've taught at church? Would you say it was rather quickly that you, or rather early on that you came to a conviction about those doctrines, or was that later on?
Well, oddly enough, the first doctrine I really wanted to study was the end times. This was 1989. I started reading a lot of books on that topic. I read Dwight Pentecost's Things to Come, Dallas Theological Seminary, big pre-trib book. And so for, I don't know, several months, I believed pre-trib. And because that was the only thing I'd studied. And then I read a book by a guy named Marv Rosenthal about something called the pre-wrath rapture of the church. It was a horrible book. He did a horrible job explaining it. I've read that book since, and it's very poorly written. But there was things in there like, yeah, that makes sense. And other guys did a better job of explaining that pre-wrath rapture position. It was very rare back then, still rather rare, unfortunately. But no, it was eschatology that I was passionate about very early.
Why do you think?
It's the grace of God.
It's the grace of
God
God. Well, I was
leading
thinking it could do with like the personality type of being protective. You want to protect and prepare for the ones you love.
I think that's part of it, Jura, for sure. I think, again, my personality is very future-focused. And I've always tackled the most challenging topics of Scripture. I've just had that. That's the books I've written is on the most challenging topics of Scripture. It's like, well, other people have taught this stuff, but that's just my personality as well. And there's nothing harder to figure out in Scripture than that one. And so I began a long time ago. And certainly I've learned things since then. Especially with the last 3 books I wrote, I learned a lot through that process. But, it wasn't until later that I came to convictions about Reformed theology. I had another mentor named Steve Hogan who kept telling me, Kurt, you got to get this doctrine. You got to understand this. And I just kept seeing contradictory scriptures. And I just said, I can't reconcile those things. And for me, I was reading Titus chapter 3 one day, and this is where I started thinking about this. In Titus chapter 3, it says, "For the grace of God has appeared to all men." And I thought, whoa, it has not. All men does not literally mean every single person on the earth, right there. And then that started to click because it was those all men verses, that support Arminianism. And then I started studying and seeing that even the word world, the whole world, doesn't mean every single person in the New Testament, especially in the Gospel of John. So that unlocked it for me. And then, of course, unconditional predestination comes to life in Scripture after it gets unlocked. Mm-hmm. It's everywhere. And
so walk us through that a little bit, though. Like, what made you recognize that, like, the grace of God has not appeared to all men? Because I know, like, someone who doesn't believe in Reformed theology or Calvinism would take that verse to mean that, like, salvation is being offered. I'm not saying this is necessarily how they would have to take it, but just how I would understand they would take it is, salvation, the grace of God is being offered to all men. Or like Jesus coming was him appearing to all men. And so I guess in what way are you understanding that verse, I guess?
Well, the text says appeared to all men, mm-hmm. and revealed. The Greek there means to be revealed. And even I knew that, Paul's writing that in 60-some AD, that no, people in China didn't know about Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. No way. And so when Paul used the phrase all men, he was not meaning every single person on the earth. Mm-hmm. And, yeah.
So what does Paul mean there?
Well, he means the same thing that John means by the whole world. And that's described in Revelation chapter 7, where we see the rescue of the church in the end times, and people from every tribe, language, and tongue and race are in heaven. That's the whole world. That's all men. That's all races of men. That's all kinds of men. That's what those phrases mean in the New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Well, theology, stemology. When did you meet Brenda? How did that go?
You're going to make me tell this story, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
What year did we meet? I was in college for, I think, a year or two. She's going to maybe correct me on this. I should have probably studied up on this before I was I remember being there maybe a year or two before Brenda came as a freshman to the campus, and she became a Christian through our group there. Somebody sharing the gospel with her there. She became a Christian, and we lived right next to each other. We had a guy's house here about a block from campus, and a gal's house here about a block from campus, and so we lived right next to each other. And so I got to know her that way, and just saw her servant's heart, just right from the beginning. She just loved people, and she was cute. And one day, I'm walking on campus, and I look ahead a ways, and I see this girl standing in the sidewalk passing out something to people as they go by. As I get close, I think, that's Brenda. And there's Brenda right in the center of campus passing out tracts to people. And I thought, I like that. And so I could see her character and the way that she treated people. And so we knew each other for a couple of years. But it is true that we never spent any time alone. Except I do remember one time, I think we ran this errand downtown. We were doing some event, and I think we ran to a store together. And that might have even been, that was before I was even attracted to her, if that happened. That's my recollection. But definitely was becoming attracted to her, and again, my personality. I just called her up one night, and I said, hey, could you meet me off on the Pentecrest there? I talked about something, and she said, okay. And so met on the Pentecrest, and said, I'd like you to pray about getting married.
I love this.
so much. So the thing that confuses me about that, though, so you just call her up. Like, have you ever asked her, like what she thought she was coming to talk to you about?
Well, she says she knew that I was attracted to her.
Okay.
And that right after I called, she called her best friend Nancy, said, Nancy, he's going to talk to me. But we had never talked about our relationship before that. Mm-hmm. We had never talked anything like that. I had never gone on a date with her. I can vaguely even remember one time, considerable time before that we even were alone together. Mm-hmm. So you call her up, you meet her, and you say, like, I'd like to marry you, right?
I'd like you to pray about getting married. Were those the words?
Were those the words?
I'd like you to pray about getting married.
Okay.
So
then
let's wait a week, and a week from now let's have a date, and we can talk.
So then when your son goes to ask out this person, Jara, and he applies the same strategy.
You remember how upset I was?
Yeah, you were upset with him and really concerned for Jara.
It's a dumb way to do it.
So would you say you've grown in wisdom since then? Or was it just, it made sense in that context, but not for Josh?
I've always said that I don't tell my story in terms of being the pattern that people should follow. I mean, Jara's just in the church kitchen, and Josh walks into the kitchen, and I mean, mine was a little more romantic. I look at a crest at night, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Josh had to take it another step further.
Yeah.
So
that's funny.
Okay,
so she meets you, and you say, pray about getting married, and then a week later, you guys meet up again.
We went to a restaurant together. That was our first date. We got engaged on our first date.
And started planning your wedding.
Well, I don't know if we started doing that.
I'm sure. I think that's what she says.
In fact, we were gonna. That was like, I don't know, February, March, April. We were gonna be going to the summer leadership thing in Washington D.C. together again that summer. So, yeah, I remember now. I wanted to get married about 3 months. And I went to talk to her dad, and her dad was a rough guy. I loved Omer, but he was a rough guy. But when I asked him, I said, I'd like to marry your daughter. He said, I'm so glad. He said, ever since I met you, Kurt, I've been praying that you would marry my daughter.
Oh.
And I was shocked. Because some of our students had visited Brenda's home, and I'd never been down there by myself, but I guess, yeah, he met me that way. In fact, if I remember correctly, he got ill, and some of us college guys went down to he was a farmer, and some of us college guys went to his farm and was helping on the farm there, doing stuff. Because I grew up on a farm, so I knew something about farming. So, yeah. So I guess that's how we met, and that's what he said. But he said, please, not 3 months. put this off a little bit. So I acquiesced and said, okay, I'll put it off till. Let's see, that was.
So how many months did you wait?
Well, we got married in September. I think I talked to her in February of 1989. So, yeah.
February, September, so like.
Was that like 7 months?
7 months, something like that.
Yeah.
8 months.
It was way too long.
And your anniversary is coming up here in like a week or two.
Yeah.
I feel like I should use
38 years.
Use that little data point more to shock people that my parents got engaged on their first date. I feel like that's a good thing to tell people.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
You think that's a good thing to tell people?
And then you got to add they've been married for 38 years.
Yeah,
it's like it's worked out.
Success. First date, you got to decide.
Yeah, it seems like the longer you date, the worse it is.
I knew who she was.
Yeah.
I didn't need to date her. And the best way to get to know people is how are they treating other people. Not how they're going to treat you on a date, but how are they going to treat other people that they're living with, and what kind of reputation does she have. And I knew all those things, and so I didn't need to know anything more.
That is really wise, though. Because I feel like a lot of people get into a dating relationship saying like, well, I need to find out if this person is compatible with me, or I need to find out like who this person really is.
Yeah.
But that's like a really good point, that you don't actually find out who the person is when you're dating them, because you're just seeing this one side of them that's all lovey-dovey.
And they're trying to impress you too.
Yeah. You're on their best behavior.
And so when did you tell Brenda you wanted to be a pastor and like go to different countries and do dangerous things? And she accepted it.
Well, after we were engaged, I do remember this conversation we had. We are sitting in the parking lot of Hancher Auditorium on the University of Iowa campus. We're sitting in my little Chevy Chevette. And I said, Brenda, I think God's going to make me an apostle someday. And I didn't even know what an apostle was, but bad theology, but that's what I said to her. I think I'm going to be an apostle someday, and it's not going to be easy. We are not going to have an easy life. And she must have said okay still, but I was trying to warn her that I wasn't going to be the easiest person to be married to.
Well, what I remember, I don't know if these were the exact words, but I actually think about this conversation that you had with Mom a lot, because what I remember, I don't know if it was her saying it or you said it, but like she said, like, Kurt, I'll follow you wherever.
Yeah, I think that is what she says.
And it's
I'm
like,
sure it is.
That's really rare, I think, that someone is like, you have this vision for your life together, like, we're gonna serve God and it's not gonna be easy, and she's like devoted to you in that. I mean, obviously it's a devotion to God ultimately, but her being devoted to helping you fulfill that.
Yeah.
Well, she knew me well enough to know I was crazy. I didn't surprise her when I said those things. She knew what kind of life I was living on the college campus. So,
well, and that speaks to Brenda's personality. That's who she is. Like, those words are very true of who she is.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
She would follow you and support your dreams and your goals, and
she has for 38 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's never followed you overseas.
Once.
Well, I guess once. Yeah, that's true. On mission.
And then she's like, never again.
She has told me I don't want to go back.
So, how long have you been a pastor?
31 years.
And what is... It feels like too broad of a question to ask, what has that experience been like? But what would you say, like, to young men? Well, okay, so this is a question I have. So, you wanted to be a pastor. God was going to make you a super apostle or something like that. I'm surprised you didn't get involved in all that. Like, what is it? NAR?
I don't know what that is.
I don't know. Anyways. Why did you not go to seminary?
I wanted to. I really wanted to. And there was one time I decided to go. And I was going to go to Reformed Theological Seminary in Florida, Orlando, and I checked it out. I was going to go. And I had a conversation with Pete, my friend. And Pete said, that's a bad idea. And I say this to my shame maybe a little bit. For many, many years, Pete Gross was the only man in my life that could tell me not to do something. And if he did, I stopped. Because he was always extremely so supportive of me. And so there's at least 2 or 3 times. I told you about the first time. That was another time where he said, that's a bad idea. And for many years, he was the only guy that could ever tell me that.
And why did he think it was a bad idea to go to seminary?
Well, in hindsight, it was. It would have been so expensive, taking 4 years or more of my life. It would have taken me completely out of the fellowship I was in. My life would have been on a completely different trajectory. And I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
For sure, in my opinion. And in hindsight, I've read all those seminary, I don't want to I've read a lot of seminary textbooks, and like I said, I've learned a lot through those textbooks. But yeah, I didn't need to go to seminary, and that's why I'm so excited about my work overseas. Is because we're training pastors in the churches, because they don't have Bible colleges to go to, they don't have seminaries, and we're raising them right in their churches, and that's what we've done here at New Life. We've raised up pastors right in the church, and we can teach them the theology here, and they're going to learn pastoring better in the church than in a seminary classroom. So I'm glad that I can go overseas and tell these pastors now, I've never been to seminary. And so it gives them hope, because they're being told you got to go to seminary to be a pastor. And when I tell them I've never been to seminary, it gives them hope that wow, okay, God can raise me up too without seminary. So, but yeah, there was a couple different times where I really wanted to go. The second time I really wanted to go, even mom and I visited some seminaries in Chicago, Trinity. I was very interested in going to Trinity Theological Seminary. And because I've read some of these professors' books, and so I've become interested in the professors, and Wheaton also. Met Douglas Moo, one of my favorite Roman scholars, and but by that time we had kids, and it just would have been too expensive and too disruptive to take. Did we have? Maybe we only had 2 kids at that time, but it was just. The time to do it had just passed. I was too old at that point. And we'd already planted New Life, and New Life was growing, so didn't need to go to seminary.
So what would you say to young men who want to be leaders in the church? Like, I think, because like, you know, if there's a young person who wants to be an engineer, you know, their path is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
What is the path for a young man to become a leader in the church? Because I mean, like Paul, like obviously, one of the biblical terms for a leader in the church is an elder, because there is a certain element of age that comes into being a leader.
Yeah.
But then also Paul tells Timothy, you know, do not let anyone look down on you because of your young age.
Yeah.
So what, I mean, and I'm not saying there's one path, but what path do you see for young men who want to lead?
Well, first of all, I think it is important to distinguish path to pastoring as opposed to path to engineering. You cannot learn your way academically into being a pastor, although American Christianity believes that, and it's been tragic and foolish to think that an 18-year-old kid can go to seminary, be there 4 years, get a piece of paper, and now he's a pastor. 95% of them aren't at that point in their life. And so it's just tragic that the church has adopted this American secular worldly idea that knowledge makes a pastor, or that you can academically make a pastor. And I know seminary professors that will tell you, they'll agree with me on that, you know. And a lot of Christians will say, well, of course, that's true, you know. But we still have this machine, seminary machine, that spits out these graduates and puts them in ministry. And I know Ben Hunt went to Bible college, and he's told me, what's the percentage of the guys that he went to Bible college with that are still in ministry? Very small. They all burned out, practically. And so let's not do it the way that you learn to be an engineer. What does the Bible say? This sounds a little mysterious, but Acts 20 tells us, Paul says, the Holy Spirit has raised you up as a pastor. And I know that sounds a little mysterious, but that's really true. First of all, the Holy Spirit's the one that gives you that gift of pastoring or teaching, and so you have the passion to do it. You have the passion and the desire. And that passion and desire, first of all, is shown up by just really caring deeply about people and loving people and wanting to help them grow as Christians.
And I think one thing to that is just because you're good at something doesn't mean that that's the thing you need to be doing. Just because you can like put together a beautiful sermon does not mean that you are a pastor or that you can be a pastor. I feel like some people, just because they're good orators, think that they can now lead a flock.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, even some of those churches that hire those pastors, what are they looking for? They're looking for knowledge. That's what they want too. And so this is a really smart young guy. He seems to know the Bible really well. Let's have him be our shepherd. And of course, Bible knowledge is important. It's not the most important thing. Not even close. It's not the most important thing. And so that's the first thing I'd say is the Holy Spirit raises you up. He gives you those desires. But the second thing I'd say is just become part of a good church, become a member of a good church, and serve that church and love the people there. And the leadership there, if it's a good church, the leadership there will recognize that. They'll recognize the work of God in your life. And just like we have at New Life here, we recognize that work. It kind of takes one to know one. I'm a pastor, and I can kind of recognize other pastors.
Yeah.
And I said this about, well, I won't name him. Should I name him? I said this to the pastoral team a couple months ago. I said, this guy right here, he's a pastor. He's not pastoring. He's a businessman, but I said he's a pastor. God made him one. He doesn't even know it. I told him a week later, I said to this brother, I said that to him. And he kind of resonated with that. He understands that. He just has a heart for people. That is supernatural. He has a supernatural heart for people. All Christians love people, but pastors live for people. Their whole life revolves around that flock, and that's the grace of God working in their life. And if you don't have that grace, you're going to burn out, and you're not going to be able to do it. That's what happened to Ben Hunt's friends. They thought maybe they were gifted teachers, and they thought pastoring was just going to be about spending 30 hours a week on a Sunday sermon and giving that message on Sunday, and that was going to be their big responsibility. Again, foolish. Even the Greek there in Ephesians chapter 4, the gift is pastor-teacher, not pastor and teachers. It's like one word, Paul, because pastors and teachers are the same thing to Paul there. And if you're a teacher, then you better be pastoring. If you're pastoring, you better be teaching.
Why do you think God united those two things? Because it could be easy, like in our modern society where things are very specialized. Like I know there's a lot of big churches that have a teaching pastor, and really their only job is to teach on Sunday. Why do you think God united those two things, and that's his intention, is that the gift is both teaching the word and caring for people?
Pastoring is never meant to be something like a seminary professor, where you're just getting up and spouting all your knowledge. People will not grow that way spiritually. They might get smarter, but knowledge alone does not grow Christians. Love does. And if you are in full-time ministry and you are not setting an example of love to your flock, you should not be in full-time ministry. That's job number one for a pastor. Set an example for love. And you can't just do that in Sunday sermons. You have to be involved with people. You have to be loving people. You have to be serving people. You can't do that from the stage.
Yeah.
But that's the number one job description right there. That's the number one responsibility of a pastor, is to be an example of Christ-like love.
And I feel like you can feel it as a flock, like being a part of that. Your leader and how they love you, you can feel it. Because I've been a part of several churches where, the pastor teaches on Sunday, but you don't feel like they actually care about you.
Or you don't feel comfortable ever going to them with a problem.
Yeah. And you don't have any commitment to the church or the pastor or anything like that. You don't trust them to follow them anywhere. But I think it's interesting that you say that, because a lot of the people we've had on our podcast so far, when they talk about like a person has changed their life, they talk about who they met first at New Life. they bring up your name every time, and I feel so proud hearing it. But it's always that you were so kind and patient with them, and when they were, going through something, you invited them. You took time. You took them to your office. You didn't judge them. You had grace for them. It was that you loved them. It wasn't that you taught them end time theology. It wasn't that you told them about Calvinism or whatever else the other stuff was.
Exactly.
The things that they needed to be saved, the things that they needed to feel welcome in New Life, to make New Life their home, was that you invited them to your office, was that you loved them, was that you visited them, was that you were easygoing with them.
Yeah, that proves my point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like with this podcast, Joseph and I always have different things we're trying to do. So I'm going to bring it back to you having a family. You probably don't care because you were there for it, but...
I was there. Well, I was there for part of it.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of it, though.
Okay.
I remember some of it.
Well, I want to go back to, so you and Brenda, you guys get married. She's going to follow you anywhere. What was it like to have that first little baby girl? How did you feel?
Changed her life, for sure. And Jessica was such a happy baby. I had such a blast with her. I just remember playing with her a lot. We, what have I said before? Maybe you've heard me say, didn't we live in 13 different places in the first X number of years of our marriage?
Something like that.
I don't remember what the
Moved a
number was.
lot.
I used to have the number. So we moved a lot, but Jessica, we were in Ames, Iowa at that point. I was in campus ministry there. And I just remember having a blast with her. Yeah, it was awesome having a little girl. Of course, I enjoy that now with my granddaughters and Gwen, and I get to re-experience that all again. But yeah.
Did you feel like you gained a new appreciation for your responsibility towards other people, specifically, your daughter when she was born, or did it seem like you had already, that was already just who you were, is that you were trying to selflessly serve others, so there wasn't a huge change there?
No, it was different. For one thing, I'm not financially responsible for people in the church. I remember we moved back to Iowa City, and Joelle had been born at this point, so I had two daughters. And I'd gotten out of campus ministry, I was looking for work and having a hard time finding work. And I remember going into Joelle's room that night. She's laying in the crib, she's sleeping, and I'm just saying, God, am I going to be able to provide for these kids? I think every young man, except for these guys that get to go to Rockwell Collins and right out of college, making $80,000 a year, but like Nate over there. But no, I struggled for about a year after I left campus ministry to really, that's when I started my business. But it's a hard thing for a young man. It can be. When you take on that responsibility, now, okay, these people depend on me. So it's even a greater weight, in my opinion, than the church, to be honest with you.
What is the Bible verse? If you don't take care of your own family, you're worse than the non-believer.
Right.
So that is very serious.
Yeah.
I remember a story that you shared that when you and Brenda first got married, all of the gifts you guys got, you sold a good amount of it because you didn't have any money.
We were very poor. I do remember this, and I'm talking about 1990s, okay? The first 5 years of our marriage, I averaged $12,000 a year.
Wow.
I don't know how we did that.
Yeah.
But
and so how old were you when you guys started having kids?
I think I was 23, 24. Is that right?
Okay. And then, so within that 5 years, did you just have Jessica and Joelle? What is their age difference? I don't know.
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
2 years. 2 years between them, right?
Yeah.
And then 2 years between Joelle and Jenna, roughly?
Maybe a little more, but yeah. I had started my business when, by the time Jenna was born, so.
And so you had 3 girls. At what point were you starting to get desperate for a boy?
Couple years
I guess Jenna or
couple
by-
years after Jenna was
Yeah.
born.
Because these guys are quite a bit younger than she is.
Yeah.
She's 30.
Yeah.
She's 31.
Yeah, after Jenna was born, I tell this story. I prayed. I think I prayed every single day for a year. I don't think I missed a day.
Didn't you fast, son?
Yeah, and I was asking God, give us a boy, and we weren't getting pregnant. And after that year, I stopped praying. I said, okay, that's God's answer. And then sometime after that, Brenda got pregnant, and so we were living in out in Newhall at that point, and I remember Brenda coming into my office. I had my office in my home there, and she came in the office and she laid 2 blue bibs on my desk. What is this? And she said, we're having twin boys.
Oh my gosh. I've heard this before. It gets me so excited though.
So I tell people, be careful what you pray for. I was praying for 1 boy. I got 2. And, but I mean, what a blessing having twin boys. It's just one more example. I tell people wherever I go, even overseas, I just say, I'm just telling you, and I mean this with all humility, but I am one of the most blessed men you will ever meet. And I just thoroughly believe that, and I give God all the credit for that. But it's true. It's just true. And having Joe and Josh is just one more example of that. Had such a blast with them. And they were awesome boys, awesome kids. I've said this before. Brenda and I cannot remember a single time that Joe and Josh fought.
You have bad memory. We
Well,
discussed that.
We do not remember.
You don't ever remember me like chasing Josh around?
I don't.
He would always like get under my skin on purpose, and then I'd chase him.
But they thought you were playing and having fun and getting along when you were
I don't
doing
know.
that.
I don't remember you guys
Maybe
fighting.
he just did it when you guys weren't.
Your
like,
sisters
home.
fought. I don't remember
yeah.
you guys fighting.
Wow.
But-
We were perfect.
When you were the
angels.
youngest, so like they forgot about you,
Yeah.
son.
We were angels compared to them. We weren't throwing books at each other and all that.
So my question with that would be what advice would you give to someone for them to also be able to be at your age? What are you, 31, 32? Hurt?
Right
At
now?
that point when I had
No,
the
I
kids,
mean now. At 60. I didn't want to call them old. Like, what advice would you give to someone where they can come be at your age and say, I am the most blessed person you'll ever meet?
you can't force that. It's God. I don't even know why He's blessed me so much. I mean, there's guys that are more humble than I am. There's guys that work harder than I do. There's guys that are godlier than I am. A lot of my Christian mentors, those guys were godlier, at least as godly as I am, but so many of them have messed up lives, messed up kids, messed up ministries, and I don't have an explanation for it. You can't plan that. You can't force that. And I frankly, it's like David. He's sitting in the temple and says, "Why me, God? Who am I?" And I feel that way. Yeah.
It's probably
So-
gratitude then, because I say, why me? But it's like, why me?
So this is a grossly self-serving question, but what are some of your favorite memories of me as a child?
I told you I don't have real good memories. You and Josh were together, constantly.
So you probably can't tell you guys apart from your memory.
Well, I can tell you apart, but most of my memories are going to be with you guys together.
Well, that's fine if it's us together, but
Well, I just had so much fun with you guys, and I'm going to tell the turtle story, of course.
okay.
So we're in Missouri traveling down to some relatives, and there's this turtle on the road. So I stop, I pick it up, I put it in the trunk of my car, and say, I'm going to take that back. Were you guys with us? You guys, yeah, you
I
were
have
with us.
no idea.
Yeah, we're going to take it back. Seems like the kids weren't with us. Anyway, I'm going to take that back to Iowa for a pet.
Which is breaking the law, correct?
I found out later taking a turtle across state lines is breaking the law. But and
I think it's past the statute of
that
limitations
turtle
at this point.
pooped in my trunk, and I never got the smell out of it ever. So another one of my bad ideas. But I came home, and I give you guys this turtle and set him outside in the front lawn, And Joe and Josh, you know, they're about this high. I think they're going to love this turtle. So I get a phone call, and I need to go in the house to get the phone. And
because there were no cell phones.
No, I don't remember if there was, but you know, I just remember having to go in the house for a phone call. And I said, boys, I'll be back in just a minute. And that wasn't a very long phone call. And I come back outside in the front yard, and they're just walking around, you know, roaming around. I said, guys, where's the turtle? We don't know. I just laughed and laughed and laughed. How could you lose a turtle?
Well, I think my wife would testify that I have not changed one bit.
Yeah. One sad memory is me breaking your arm on the trampoline at that
Tell me
same
about
house.
that, because I feel like I don't quite, like, I talk about that with people, like mom or whatever, and she's like, no, you have the story wrong. So what's the straight story?
Well, my recollection is I was bouncing you and Josh on the trampoline, and I don't know if you came down on top of Josh or Josh came down on top of you anyway. And I don't even remember you really crying all that much. But then we went in the house and we were watching TV, and you kept complaining about your arm. And I thought, son, just buck up, you know. But you kept complaining.
Uh-huh.
And so I remember I just decided, well, I'm just going to take an emergency room and see what's going on here. And sure enough, they took an X-ray and you fractured your arm. I mean, it wasn't a break. It was some sort of fracture, but
you probably would have noticed if it was like
Yeah.
at a right angle or something.
But yeah, I felt bad about that. I just remember the vacations that we went on, having a lot of fun on the vacations, and yep.
I think it is like, because
What's one of your favorite memories about me?
about you, there's a lot of things. But like, also I feel like I don't have a great memory of that, like my childhood either. I just feel like humans are not good at making memories during happy times. And we were just very happy. But
You don't remember any of it?
no, I do remember something. I remember one day, we were on the trampoline again, of course. Actually, I think I was on the trampoline by myself. And I think at that point, I don't remember what age I would have been, but I'm pretty sure I'd already gotten the backflip figured out. So I could do a backflip. Or maybe I can't remember if I was doing a front flip or a backflip. I was doing one of those. And I came down like in a kneeling position, like one knee on the ground, and my face like came into my other knee, and I knocked a tooth out, if I remember correctly. But it was when I still had my kid teeth, or baby teeth. What do they call baby teeth?
Yeah.
Anyways, and what I remember happening after that is like, obviously it hurt a lot. Then I came inside, and I think you were like comforting me, and then we just kind of hung out, and you read C.S. Lewis's Out of the Silent Planet to me for like a while. And so I remember you reading that book to me that day. And
You couldn't have been too young then.
well, I don't know. I think you were reading that to us when we were pretty young. And I remember you reading The Hobbit to us.
I do remember that. That's a fond memory of reading the whole, Lord of the Rings series to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I remember those two things, and I do still really enjoy, science fiction, fantasy. So, guess that's where it started for me. But for some reason, I just remember that one day specifically, and the scene in the book that I remember, which I don't like. I know how my child mind visualized this, but I don't know if I read it again how exactly I would visualize it. But the protagonist, isn't his name Ransom? That's who Matt and Jenna named their kid after. So Ransom is on the site, or he goes out of the Silent Planet. The Silent Planet is Earth. He is on. Does he go to like Mars in the first one or something?
I really don't remember those books very well, but
Oh yeah. Anyways,
they were weird.
he's like some creature, some like large creature is like carrying him on his shoulders through like a field or something like that. I remember you reading that part, and like I don't know, I just as a kid I was like really like fascinating, but I guess that's what you should do when your kid knocks their tooth out. Is you should just
Read a book.
Read a book too.
read science fiction to them.
So you had your 5 kids. Did you guys want more children?
Yeah, we just trusted God with that. We were going to just have as many kids as God gave us.
So that's another reason I think you guys are super blessed, because other people do that and they'll end up with 14 children. You guys do that and you end up with a reasonable number of children. That's extra blessing. Not a lot of people can do that.
I tell people if you have 3 kids, you might as well have 10 because 3's the hump. And if you can figure out how to have 3, little kids all, 2 years apart, you've managed that, and the other kids are getting old enough they can help with the younger ones. And it's not a huge exaggeration to say if you can have 3, you can have 10.
And was that your rationale for trusting the Lord with, whatever he had for you with children?
I don't know. We just felt like we wanted God to be in control of that. Mm-hmm. And maybe if we would have gotten up to 14, we would have done something different. But we just always were going to trust God with that.
Mm-hmm. So you've had your children and you're raising them, and you're studying a lot. You're writing your books at that time, right? So how many books have you written and published?
27.
20. That's a lot of books.
Yeah.
Which one of them do you feel is the most valuable one, or which one do you think you did the best job on?
What is your magnum opus?
Like when you die, which book do you want us to... Like, Kurt wrote this, you should definitely read it.
That'd be the faith study in the Christian Essentials. And the reason for that is because that's about God's love. Mm-hmm. And there is no greater theology than love, than God's love. And I enjoyed describing that and explaining that. And I think that's the most important book I've ever read.
What about, I assumed you would say visionary faith, because I know that's made an impact for a lot of people too.
The weird thing about visionary faith is I had written a theological book on the doctrine of faith, and there was a few chapters in there on this thing called visionary faith, and I just pulled those chapters out and made it into a separate book.
Oh.
And didn't really think much about it, to be honest with you. And then, of course, some people got a hold of that book, and that's what started the overseas ministry for me. So I would have never guessed that would be the most influential book I'd ever read, because it was I didn't spend a lot of time on that one, and it was kind of an afterthought, really, because I was writing about the different aspects of faith, and this visionary faith was a specific kind of faith in the scriptures, in my opinion. And I don't remember even why I pulled it out and made a separate book out of it, but I guess God used that.
Yeah. So while you were raising children and writing books, you also suffered with your back. What was it?
Chronic fatigue.
I was going to say tiredness, extreme tiredness. So how did you manage all that? Well,
I wasn't writing. I wasn't doing much of anything when I had chronic fatigue. Mm-hmm. That's a weird thing. I'd always had as much energy as I ever wanted. And then I hit this brick wall, not understanding what it is. And it was very, very, very difficult. I do feel bad because that's about the time that the boys were really growing up. And I missed a lot with the boys because of the chronic fatigue. So I wasn't writing during that time. Yeah. It's kind of, you just trust God with that. It kind of took 9 years out of my life. I had some spurts of energy during that time, but I took 2 6-month sabbaticals from ministry and trying to get this figured out. And so yeah, that's kind of a weird twist in my story. 9
Mm-hmm.
years just kind of taken out of my life. 9 years in bed.
How did you give that up to God? Or trust Him? Like, and was there a process, or were you just like, well, I guess I'm just laying here now. It is what it is.
Well,
Yeah.
real quick, could you describe what it was like to experience chronic fatigue and maybe just a little bit of like what doctors think causes it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I'll describe the latter first. Finally, thank God, I got to Mayo Clinic, and I got to talk to one of the top 3 experts in the world on chronic fatigue, and he sat down with Mom and I for 45 minutes. And what they said is I had something called kind of pure chronic fatigue. In other words, I didn't have any other health issues going on. I just had this, and that's why they kind of wanted to study me a little bit. I had seen kind of another doctor the day before, kind of an entry level, or not entry level.
Triage or
He was just interviewing me, trying to find out more about what was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, he was an older guy. He wasn't a young doctor. He was a great doctor. And he said, so the next day I met with this other doctor, this chronic fatigue expert. And this guy says, hey, Dr. So-and-so called me last night at my house and said, I really needed to meet with you because you're unique. You don't have all these other issues going on. You just have pure chronic fatigue. And so it's during that time they shared a video with us of this to explain chronic fatigue a little bit. They shared a video of us of this girl who broke her ankle in high school, and like 3 or 4 or 5 years later, she's still on crutches, and the leg is extremely painful. She's got to wear shorts. She can't even wear pants, and so she comes to Mayo Clinic, and they tell her there's absolutely nothing wrong with your ankle anymore. It's completely healed. Get off the crutches. And so what they explained is that when she broke her ankle and experienced that pain, that it caused these neural pathways to her brain sending pain signals. And so even after the ankle was healed, those neural pathways sending pain signals to her brain were still active. And so what chronic fatigue does is something traumatic happens to your body that affects your nervous system. And it's so sending those stress signals. For me, I never felt pain. It was just exhaustion. Mm-hmm. And so they knew my entire history. And he said, and they knew when it had started. And he said, I was in Africa doing some pastors' conferences there. And I got really sick, and I was laid up in bed for several days, totally out. I couldn't hardly move, and recovered there in Africa before I came back. But he was pretty certain that virus kind of affected my nervous system, and that's how I acquired chronic fatigue syndrome, because it hit me soon after I came back from Africa. So I was just so thankful to have answers.
So real quick. So basically, what he was saying is like this lady's body had created this neural pathway of I'm in pain. Your body had created this neural pathway of
You're tired.
Tired. I need to rest.
You're exhausted. And so what they said, you got to fight through it. You've got to push yourself, and you got to retrain your brain that you're not tired, because you're not. You're perfectly healthy. So I remember I came back, and this is one symptom of chronic fatigue. To try to walk, I get up to walk, and it was just like I was walking through water, like up to my neck, walking through mud, like just weird. My body was just sending signals. You're exhausted. You can't even walk. And when I came back, I said, I am going to force myself to walk. And so I just kept walking, and I think it was about 2 weeks later, I'm walking right out over here in the neighborhood, and it's like, and then something clicked, boom, and then I'm just walking normally.
Wow.
And I was done. I was done with chronic fatigue. I haven't really struggled with it since then.
How do you feel that it took 9 years to get to that point when you could have done that way earlier?
You have to trust God with those things, because that was really 9 years of wasted life, because I didn't do a whole lot. And people will say, well, you must have learned a lot through it. And again, I don't mean this to sound arrogant or anything, but I don't feel like I did learn anything from it. I'm sure I did.
Yeah.
But, of course, the big test was I'm a very busy person. I like to accomplish things. And here I am, I'm laying in bed and I can't hardly even get out of bed. And of course, God was testing me. But I never felt like I really struggled. I just remember in my bed saying, God, if you're done with me, you're the boss. I mean, you're the boss. So I accept that. But it was during that time that I came up with that theology that I have about privately glorifying God. And that became very important to me, that I understood that I could glorify God right from my bed, that it's not about what you're doing. You can worship God, you can pray, you can do all those things. And I tell my friends overseas, I said, if you don't believe that you can glorify God in a jail cell, you don't understand glorifying God. You don't have to be doing ministry to glorify God. And you can be laid up in bed, still glorify God. So that was a very important theology to me, but I felt like it wasn't really a test. I felt like I knew that already. And I had those convictions, and I never got depressed during my time of chronic fatigue that I can ever remember, not emotionally. And
See, that's amazing. It makes me think of Job, but his wife was telling him to curse God and die. So maybe what helped was Brenda wasn't telling you curse God and die.
Oh, Brenda's gonna have so many rewards from that time. She served me hand and foot, and it was a very, very difficult time.
Well, yeah, because you had 5 kids,
Yeah.
and then you were in bed.
Yeah.
So she was doing a lot with the kids for 9 years.
There was a period of about, 6-7 months where I was doing okay in those times. Maybe a couple of those times, maybe 6 months or so where I was doing okay and I was working again. But no, it was a 9-year thing.
So I feel like a lot of Christians would, if they went through a similar experience, or just if they're suffering in some way, they'll label it as, well, especially when you were doing a lot of ministry.
Yeah.
They'll label it as spiritual warfare, spiritual
we
attack.
just planted another church that I was leading, and I had to shut that whole thing down. I don't know if you guys.
Would you label your 9 years that you lost chronic fatigue? Would you label that spiritual warfare?
I don't know. I didn't suffer like Job did. Okay.
Well, yeah.
But
I'm still
similar
I
to
would be dead
Job,
if
Right, that's true.
Job never got an explanation for why God allowed that to happen. And I don't feel like I have an explanation. I can't look back and say, gee, I learned so much. I got so much closer to God. All those things. I can't say that honestly. So I really don't know.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to label it as spiritual warfare necessarily. I'm just wondering what your view on that would be.
It certainly could be.
Because I personally, I feel like some Christians are a little bit too quick to label something as spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in a bad mood today. It's spiritual warfare, or whatever. Which is true. I mean, we're at war with our flesh.
It was definitely a God thing to get healed of it, though.
Yeah.
Because I had tried twice before to get in the Mayo Clinic, and they denied me. The third time, they accepted me. And when I met with that chronic fatigue doctor, I said, why did you guys accept me now? Why am I here now? And he said, were people praying for you? And I said, yeah. And he says, that's why you're here.
Well, and the crazy thing is the solution, it's your mind. Mind over matter. It's that it was all
in some way, it was just all in my mind.
Yeah, well, and I'm thinking, I wonder how much of our problems are just in our mind. We can pray for healing, we can pray for, but I wonder how much of it is when you could just get up and do something.
Brenda will tell you, when I left that guy's office and we went back to our hotel room, I was so angry.
Yeah.
I was not happy. You think yippee, I got this solution now.
Well, there's no medication.
I was so mad, feeling like this was all in my head.
Yeah, this is a waste of time.
I was so mad. Yeah.
Which I feel like labeling things spiritual warfare takes away the power of you could just do something about it. Because then, if it's spiritual warfare, then that's outside of you. There's not much you can do about it. It's on God. You just wait. But if there's a natural explanation for it, then there's like a natural thing you can do about it, which I think can limit a lot of Christians. So you have your kids, you get over chronic fatigue, you're writing books, and you are doing all this, you're traveling now, you're doing ministry in India and Nepal and stuff. How did you come to have that passion? So your passions were evangelism, and then it went to shepherding your flock. But now it's overseas. That seems kind of different.
Well, there was two things. We've been committed to the Great Commission ever since we planted New Life. And, we understood you got to have something going on overseas if you're going to be committed to the Great Commission. So that was one thing that was going on. That's why we helped plant the church in Monterrey, Mexico. But the biggest driver was relatively soon after I became a pastor, I just started praying, God, I want to someday be a pastor who's pastoring other pastors. And of course, at that point, I knew, I gotta grow a lot more in wisdom and everything before that can happen. But for some reason, early, I just recognized the work that mentors had done in my life, and I wanted to be that. I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be a mentor to pastors. And I tried different avenues to do that here in America, and just didn't work. And then God opened that door to India, and boom, here I am doing pastors' conferences overseas, and of course, that was much later in my ministry, and I was at a point now where I had a lot to share, not only about theology, but about pastoring and about life, marriage and parenting and all those things. I was a mentor at that point in time, and so God answered that prayer. I should have been specifying Iowa instead of India, but God answered that prayer, and and He, again, just another great blessing, because quite frankly, pastors overseas are more humble. Pastors in those areas are a lot more humble, a lot more teachable than pastors in America, generally speaking. So, man, today, looking back, if I had to choose between mentoring churches in America or mentoring churches in those places, hands down, I'd choose those places. First of all, they need it so much more, but secondly, they're just so humble and teachable.
When they love you so much there too.
Yeah, they do.
Definitely have their hearts.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we would be missing something if we don't bring up some of this other stuff with having Kurt Jurgensmeier on the podcast. You predicted the end of the world.
What?
You said that the world would end times. Our church went through a time to where we were, the end times were going to happen, and it was very serious. Okay, and then it didn't happen the way we thought. Did you have to? Are we running out of this? Okay. Did you have to mourn some of that? Did you mourn okay? And do you feel like it's gonna still happen?
Well, let me just take a step back. I mean, I've always communicated these things in probabilities, not certainties.
Yeah.
But I do recognize that even when you do that, people hear certainty.
Well, because that's safer.
Well, whatever. And I know I can sometimes come across kind of confidently and all those things, but nobody can be 100% certain about those things. Nobody. But yeah, I'm just as convinced today. I think those things that I've been teaching are still in place today. Nothing's changed. And so, yeah, I am just as convinced as ever that we are going to see the end times begin relatively soon. That's what I believe. Until those variables change,
You're still as convinced.
Yeah.
And do you still believe it would be the same person that would be the Antichrist?
Absolutely. Until something changes. He's the first guy in human history to match those 4 biblical predictions about the Antichrist, those 4 biblical attributes of the Antichrist. He's a Jew, minor leader of Magog, and worldly and famous all over the world. So
Okay, and
And
given
there's no need to not say the name. Just you can say it.
Vladimir Zelensky.
Yeah, there you go.
well, just in case he finds us and wants to sue us.
He's got bigger things to worry
that's
about
a good point.
right now.
I use it more. You're not gonna come find Kurt Jurgensmeier.
Let me just say again, nobody can say these certain things, but I do believe that the Bible is pretty clear on some attributes of the Antichrist, and it is sobering that he matches those 4 biblical attributes.
So given how it went, like things went out, we were waiting for certainties, a time period to see, which way we would go. Given how it happened, would you go after, would you say the same things you were saying? Would you say it with the amount of passion that was communicated at least to people? Would you do everything the same way had you known that that time period that we were waiting for wasn't going to happen that way? If that is a clear
Well, of course, if I knew the future, I didn't know the future.
right.
So I don't have any regrets, if that's what you're asking.
I guess that is
because
what-
again, I've always spoken in probabilities. I've always tried to be biblical about it. Mm-hmm. I've had biblical reasons for everything I've said.
Right.
I feel like too. One thing you've always stressed whenever you've taught on end times theology is that the idea that God wants every generation of Christians to at least grapple with the idea that they could see the return of Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
As Christians, that's like, to me, there's, you believe in the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ, and the next thing on the list is you believe in his return. I don't think you can't, in my opinion, I don't think you can be a Christian if you don't believe that he will physically return to this earth.
Yeah.
Well, but what really affects your life is when, which that was what the problem was.
Yeah, but I think he's always stressed every generation of Christians has had to grapple with this idea of it could be soon, it could be far off. Even Jesus talks about that in the parables in Matthew 25.
Yeah.
And to me, I don't know. That's more what I feel like my dad is always stressed. Mm-hmm. Sure, he's passionate about the doctrine and theology and the pre-wrath view. But it feels like you. I've always stressed that you need to have a balance, and not necessarily interpreting scripture. You should go all out on interpreting scripture and be confident of your view, but applying that interpretation to current events is where things get really fuzzy.
And I think that that's the scary thing a lot of pastors or teachers are not willing to do, is look at the world around them also while they're interpreting that. But you were willing to. I was listening to this podcast, and this pastor who'd been preaching for 25 years said he wouldn't even touch Revelations because he was so scared about preaching about it. And I was like, well, my father-in-law is not. He's putting videos on YouTube and he's writing all these books. But you were willing. Why is that important to also look at current events? Because there are a lot of pastors who are still saying that you shouldn't do that.
Well, in Jesus' end time sermon, he commanded 3 times for us to watch. And he wants us watching current events to see if biblical prophecy is being fulfilled. I know that a lot of Christian leaders today deride that as a bad thing to do. I know there's been mistakes made. I know people have claimed things. When I was in college, Pat Robertson was running for president, and he claimed that Jesus Christ was going to return on a certain date. He did it twice. That stuff it makes me nauseous. I would never do that. But Jesus did command us to watch. And what he meant by that is, look, I've just told you, the things that are going to happen. The disciples had asked him, what's going to be the sign of your coming and the coming of the new age? And Jesus gave him 30 verses there of things to watch for. And then he said, watch, watch, watch. And so
in Matthew 24. Right?
Matthew 24. And so we're commanded to do that. And that's the first reason we need to be doing that. And there's no way to watch without trying to connect biblical prophecies with current events. Again, I know that people make mistakes there. I know you can't be certain about these things. And that's the hardest thing to do. It is hard to interpret prophetic scripture accurately. What's even harder is to try to then interpret current events. So I'm not saying it's easy. And that's why you can't be dogmatic about it. You just can't. But I will say there are clear biblical prophecies that are being matched today in an unprecedented way that have never been happened in human history before. And I guess you got to read my 3 books on the doctrine to know what those are. But I think it's pretty clear.
Well, I do think that point about there's no other way to interpret Jesus's commands to watch. I think that's really important because in my mind, the only other way you could interpret that is you got to literally be looking at the sky. Because, Jesus went up into the sky and the Bible teaches he will be coming back down from heaven from the sky. And it's if you're not watching for the signs of his return, you're just watching for his return, which is just staring up into the sky all day.
Yeah.
And I know in the parable of it was the wicked and lazy servant there that Jesus gives there is an aspect to watching which is your own personal, I guess you could say more moral readiness for Christ. Are you serving Christ or are you the wicked lazy servant who's beating and mistreating the other servants? There is an aspect of that, but I don't think that's the main focus of the passage. I think the main focus is you're watching for his return. You're not just staring up into the sky. Like you said, you're watching for the signs of his return that he's told us to watch for.
Yeah, prophecy is definitely something that you have to be looking out and down, at the Bible and out. And I think that's one of the reasons the Jews missed Jesus, was that they weren't watching and looking at the things he was doing.
And Jesus criticized them.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you can watch the weather and know what's going to become in the weather, but you're ignorant of the signs of the times.
Mm-hmm.
And he criticized the Pharisees for that they weren't watching for the signs. They weren't recognizing the coming of the first Messiah, which they could have and should have. And he criticized them for that.
And so you're still making plans to get us out of here if things go.
A lot of those plans are complete. I mean, we did some work on that. And we feel like we need to make some plans to prepare for the possibility that end times would begin.
And so now you're going to stop talking about it because you feel like you've said all that you need to say on the topic.
I do feel like more needs to happen. In one sense, more has happened. Things have never been hotter in Israel militarily in its modern history. Not even close.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
There's never been a greater need for peace in Israel. This is why there is a growing number of Christian leaders in America saying, hey, the end's coming. Mm-hmm. Max Lucado is a good Christian pastor, teacher that I respect a lot. And boy, he's on YouTube saying this is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And he's pointing to what's happening in Israel right now. So I could point out a couple other things, but the
like
reasons...
what? I feel like people would, if I were listening to this, I would want to know.
Well, you'd have to read my books, but I've pointed out that this thing called the Shanghai Cooperation Organization matches 7 biblical attributes of the 10-nation end-time coalition.
Yeah.
And just this last Labor Day, they finally got on people's radar screen because Xi, Putin, and Modi met And that was the annual SCO summit that they met at. People didn't even know who the SCO was before that, but now they know because that meeting made a big splash. And the SCO kind of rose in prominence there because they made a statement, hey, we're kind of confronting America. We want to lead the eastern part of the world, and we're kind of opposed to the West. And so now that SCO has now kind of risen to prominence. But I've been looking at the SCO for 4 or 5 years. The other thing is that there's a growing number of pastors that are saying they do believe that America is end-time Babylon, as prophesied in Revelation 17:18. And my goodness, Donald Trump, in only 7 months of his presidency, has personified end-time Babylon beyond what I would even imagine. The focus on wealth, the idolatrous focus and worship on wealth, the use of wealth as a coercive power in the world, that's what's prophesied in Revelation 17:18 about this entity called end-time Babylon. So all those, those are things that have happened in the last 6 months. So no, my confidence hasn't gone down that we're headed to some unprecedented things here. And I think there's a lot of reason to believe that biblical prophecy is being fulfilled here.
And so a lot of people that you pastor, or some people that you pastor would love and care about, just do not share that conviction. At least not to the level that you do. And how does that feel?
Oh, that's fine. I've said all along that God has to prove these things to us, and what's going to prove it to us is the Antichrist resurrection from the dead. That's the first certain sign that the end times have begun, and I don't expect anybody to be certain about these things until that happens.
Would you say that you're a stubborn person?
Maybe.
Well, I feel like some of this stuff takes stubbornness. Like,
He didn't say no, so he's probably not stubborn.
well, I feel like some of this, like, to have that conviction, to keep telling people that maybe don't want to hear it, takes some stubbornness. I was recently reading Ezekiel, or I can't remember anything anymore. But the guy, the prophet that God says, like, take this scroll and eat it. And at first it was like morning.
Isaiah?
No.
Pretty sure it was Isaiah that ate.
Eat it, and it was morning and it was bitter, and then he ate something else and it was good, and he said, like, I'm sending you to a stubborn people, but I'm going to make you more stubborn.
That was Ezekiel.
Yes, Ezekiel,
He said, set your face like flint.
yeah, and do what I say and don't be stubborn like them. I'm not calling us stubborn, but I'm saying that when I read that, I thought of you, and I was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of Kurt a little bit, because he's like,
The chiseled face like
he's
flint.
saying all this stuff that's just like not popular, and people have an emotional reaction to it, but because you believe it so much, you keep doing it, you keep saying, you keep making your plans, like the emotions have not deterred you. And I feel like I really very much admire that, the stubbornness to, like, be committed to truth of what God has committed you, of what God has shown you, or at least what you believe God has shown you, or what you have learned. That takes stubbornness. And
Can we come up with a different word?
I don't think stubbornness is a bad thing.
Perseverance.
Kind of perseverance.
All I can say is that confidence comes from more study than you can probably even imagine. That's why I'm so confident. The biblical arguments in my books are solid. And they've come from a tremendous amount of study. I said earlier, I began studying biblical prophecy in 1989. And so that's where the confidence comes from. And that's, that's why humility is still important, but that's where the confidence comes from.
When you're writing these books and you're putting them out into the world alongside people who've gone to seminary and who are scholars, and I don't know, we would maybe consider you a scholar here at New Life, but you're not like a scholar in the mainstream sense. But you have the confidence to write these books with what you have found and then put them out into the world. That takes confidence as well.
Yeah, but that's why I study so hard. That's the only way that confidence should come, is from a tremendous amount of study, turning over every rock and reconciling everything to the Word of God.
I have one more thing. So I remember, I think maybe Josh and I had just gotten married or we were dating or something, and I was sitting with you guys at the summer retreat, and Corbin was obsessed with you at the time. And he wanted pancakes, but you know how he can be. There was like a little burnt corner on it, and so you would go and get him a new pancake. And you did that about 5 times, and Brenda had come to you and said, Kurt, the kids are out on the bouncy house and they're doing something. You said, I'm doing something really important right now. I've got to get Corbin the perfect pancake. And you went up and found, like, you kept going back, and he would be like, no, this one's too crispy, this one's too brown, this one's not like round enough. And you just kept going back until you brought a pancake that was acceptable to Corbin.
He must have been only 2 or 3 years old.
He was young, and I just remember thinking, like, that's insane. But also how much you love your grandkids, I feel. And it's not even just your grandkids in our church, it's all of the kids. Some of them call you grandpa. How much you love them, and how you take your time to you give them rides on the golf carts, you take them out, they love your hot rod, you're finding specific pancakes for them. Like, that is why do you do that, and where do you get the like love or desire even to do that? Because I don't think I'd be willing to go up 5 times to get a specific kind of pancake for a kid.
Well, that's why I say it's probably 2 or 3 years old, because that's my favorite age right there. And you know, if he was 5, 6, 7 years old, I'd tell him, eat your pancake, and that's good enough. What's the question? Why?
Yeah, like, why? I don't know. Why do you do that?
Well, the whole grandpa thing was a huge surprise to me. I wasn't really thinking about it, you know. And then boom, all of a sudden, I'm a grandpa. With becoming a dad, I felt like I was kind of more anticipating that and planning for that. But becoming a grandpa, boom, it just happens, and it's like, whoa, this is amazing. You get to experience all that joy again with none of the bad stuff. So it's amazing. I don't have to discipline those kids. I don't have to change their diapers. I remember Corbin, he was, 3 or 4 years old, and I was watching him by myself. He needed a diaper change. I laid him down, and he looks up and he says, Grandpa, you don't change diapers. I said, you're right, but this is why I love you enough to do it. Man, I tell people, there's nothing better than empty nester grandpa. I mean, it's just awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like the way you grandpa your grandkids, at least for me, because I was just now getting introduced to the family, that said more about you than anything, because the patience it took for you to do that. He was cute, but I don't know if 5 times, the cuteness was not up there for me to do that.
Well, I talked earlier that I'm one of the most blessed people you'll ever meet. And here's evidence. How many people do you know that have 14 grandchildren, have five children who all are loving the Lord, have married 5 spouses who love the Lord, and they all attend my church with my 14 grandchildren? I don't know anybody else in the world that even comes close to that, including all kinds of pastors that I know. I don't know anybody else that has that.
Yeah.
And that's God's blessing.
Definitely is.
Well, that's probably a good place to stop. Dad, thank you so much for recording this with us.
Thanks for the time. I hope I didn't just ramble.
No.
That's what
I
this
feel like
is
we
for.
probably did more rambling than you did.
Okay.
That's what this is for. But
Thanks for this ministry, guys. I will start listening to more of the podcasts. I know that it's been very encouraging to people. And we have some fascinating people in this church, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you get to know them. It's like, whoa, there's a lot more to that person than I thought. So thank you for doing
well,
this.
here's a tip. You say they're 2 hours long, but if you put it on 2 times speed, they're only 1 hour long.
Okay.
And you just listen to interesting parts that people recommend. You don't have to listen to all of it.
But it does help the metrics on YouTube if you listen to the whole thing.
Okay. All right.
Thank you,
Nate,
everybody, for listening.
Nate, thanks for your time too.
Yes.
Yes, shout out to Nathan.